How's it going, guys? Happy Wednesday. It's Mike Norris. I'm here to talk to you today about A/B testing and personalization. And for that conversation, I brought in Charles Brunn from Dynamic Yield, who is an expert in this field. So, Charles, I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit here, too.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Dialing in here from New York. It's also kind of a bit of a great in here on this Wednesday, but it's good to be here. I've essentially, I've been at Dynamic Yield for 3.5 years. I head up partnerships for all the Americas. And so in my time here, have definitely learned quite a few tricks about personalization. I'll be happy to share a little bit more about that with you.
I'd imagine. All right, so let's jump right into it then. What's the difference between A/B testing and personalization? Because I think people use the terms kind of interchangeably sometime, and there is a pretty stark difference.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess when you think about A/B testing is the concept of basically having a scientific methodology for experimenting, whether it's on your site, mobile app, email, whatever it may be, for your different marketing campaigns, right? And this started many years ago. There were a lot of great books. I'm thinking of the book like Should We Test It, or I'm butchering the name now. Can It Be Tested? And if you think about like what it was really about just letting kind of statistics to determine what UX change should happen, what banner should be changed, or what type of content should be changed. Now, it's obviously something that's critical. But it's also been commoditized over the years. And so when you think about personalization, it's kind of that next evolution of the A/B testing methodology, which is it's part of A/B testing, but it's obviously not exactly the same thing. So basically, when we think about it here at Dynamic Yield, we kind of blend the two together. What it means is that when you're thinking about launching a personalization campaign, what essentially you're going to be doing is you're going to be creating a hypothesis for a segment or a type of visitor, or basically a unique set of customers or prospects that you want to target with a specific message based on the way they're behaving, based on what you know about them, right?
Sure.
And so when you launch these campaigns, it's essentially A/B testing, but that's much more fine-tuned and much more kind of like much more deep in terms of how you're setting up that campaign. Because instead of saying, hey, we're A/B testing everybody, we're actually testing different segments and different visitors differently with different types of messaging, and letting the algorithms kind of take over and deliver a personalized experience. So again, us at Dynamic Yield, we kind of think of the two together. We think of personalization as the next evolution of testing. Sure. And obviously testing is critical to everything you do. Obviously, a lot of us come in with specific use cases or specific ideas based on best practices. Mm-hmm. But, what I've seen in 3.5 years is no two use cases are going to generate the same results with different customers, depending on their size, the type of traffic they acquire, depending on the vertical they're in, and all things like that.
Got it. Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense, I think. Is there one that you'd say is more important than the other one between personalization and A/B testing, or again, is it kind of case-by-case basis?
Yeah, so I think it is case-by-case basis. You're right about that. It'll depend, first of all, I would say even on the team you have, right? It'll
Sure.
depend on, what you've been doing. Typically, I think of the more generic testing as things that are more related to UX, UI, right? So if you're redesigning a site, because you've just, and you've seen that the checkout process is super problematic and there's a lot of issues, and maybe even in terms of performance, you have challenges. You could assume that checkout, that new checkout like experience is going to be basically improved throughout all the different segments, right? So in a scenario like that, I mean, you could certainly personalize. So you could say, hey, we want to test it for mobile visitors versus VIP visitors, returning visitors, and all these different segments. But the truth is, when you do these kind of deeper UX redesigns, typically you apply it across the board, right? So for a use case like that, maybe you start with testing. That doesn't mean that you then can't change some other things, right? You might change the specific layout of the banners. Instead of having, a main hero banner, you'd have multiple hero banners, or you'd have a slider. Or it doesn't mean that after the fact you can't do some personalization. But I do think it depends. And then when I said, it depends on the team, the reality is the team you have determines how much you can do, because even though a lot of technology stacks such as dynamic yield have, AI, and everybody talks about AI, it is not some kind of Frankenstein machine that takes over your site or your mobile app or your emails and literally does everything for you. There still needs to be quite a large amount of work that comes into strategizing around the goals, around the current challenges you see with your customers and your flows, and thinking about how you want to deliver that experience, right? That personalized experience for all your different customers. So in many ways, personalization, even though it's the next evolution of A/B testing, it also requires, in a way, I guess, more resources when it comes to deploying these campaigns effectively. So if you're a small startup not doing much, the personalization you might do is just letting recommendations, deliver personalized recommendations, then that's super low touch and you don't need a ton of resources. But if you want to launch a full-blown personalization program, you do need either the team internally to be able to handle that, or working with a partner such as you guys to be able to help you drive that personalization.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. Oftentimes people talk to us and just, maybe our clients, potential clients, and they'll say, well, why do we have to continue doing it? We'd like it to be a little more set it and forget it. And I mean, our answer is, we would too. We'd love for it to be more set it and forget it, but that's just not the nature of it. You've got to keep an eye on it. You've got to keep working through it.
That's right. And you need to keep refining. Like, there's no such thing as setting and forgetting. Like, when it comes to everything, like, everything is in constant motion. And again, like it's, let's say from our standpoint, actually, when we launch some of these campaigns, we see that, first of all, you might segment in two different segments, but then you see, after running that experience for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you start seeing things happening within those segments. So you start sub-segmenting and you create additional segments. And then you can keep on doing this and find amazing nuggets of uplift or amazing increases in average order value or revenue per session based on this additional continuous work that you do, right? And so we see basically personalization campaigns as just getting more refined, better, more sophisticated. And to your point, it's constant work.
Sure. Yeah. So you just mentioned something that I think is pretty interesting, and I think it's a question a lot of people have. Let's say we're running some A/B testing or personalization campaigns. At what point would we begin to see results from those?
So I hate to say this again, but it depends.
Sure.
First of all, when you think about the campaign you're launching, it depends on the baseline. Let's say you have this amazing website, you have this amazing, partner like UTech that, did a really good job at also like fetching like the right type of customers through the acquisition campaigns, and the site is beautifully designed and it's optimized and everything. If everything's great, maybe like personalization is going to take longer to show results, right? Or maybe moving that needle is going to be more difficult. But let's assume all things considered, like you have, a site that's let's say benchmarked with average with the overall industry. You can see results pretty quickly in a matter of weeks. Now, obviously, it also depends on traffic. It depends on how you're segmenting your traffic, right? If you for example, launch a campaign on your cart page, you might have only 5% of traffic that's going to that cart page. Having said that, that 5% might be the place where you should be focusing, right? But because you have lower traffic, it can take a couple extra weeks to actually get to a result which moves the needle.
Sure.
So if you're a massive company with 10 million monthly unique visitors, it's not going to be the same as if you're a startup with 100,000 monthly uniques. Again, it doesn't mean that you can't see results in a matter of weeks, but it means that your options in terms of slicing and dicing all the traffic that you're getting might be a little bit more limited, because you don't want to have, let's say, segments that are so small that essentially you're targeting 1,000 people a month, and you'd need maybe 3 months to get that statistical significance. So it does depend. It also depends on things like again, like simple things like what's your average order value. If you're selling things that are super high end and $10,000 sofas, maybe launching a personalization campaign increases conversion by 10% and you're going to see a massive results, right, in terms of your performance. But if you're selling potato chips online, that's going to take quite a bit longer to actually see the type of result that move the needle in terms of ROI and in terms of performance.
Got it. I could go for some potato chips, by the way. So again, you touched on this a little bit, and I'm sure the answer is it kind of depends, but what kind of results can people expect to see when they're running campaigns like this?
So I guess maybe I'll take a step back. First of all, like
Sure.
when we think about the results that we deliver, and when I say we deliver, it's not really us, right? It's people like you. It's people that are actually using the tool. Our tool is just an enabler, right? But when we look at the results, it'll vary based on the KPI you want to set up, right? So typically, at least in the world of commerce, you're going to want to optimize for maybe revenue, like total revenue, top line revenue. I mean, it could be increasing average order value. It could be increasing your revenue per session, increasing conversions, right? So for any one of these different campaigns, essentially what you're doing is selecting a KPI that you want to optimize and increase. And then dynamic yield will be focusing on that and really using that as the measuring stick to increase performance. So that's just the context I wanted to share. Now,
sure.
In terms of what those numbers can look like, again, we have some customers that see maybe a 5% lift in conversion. We have customers that see a 10x increase in conversion, right? We have customers even in terms of dollar value that have seen close to 40x return on investment based on what they're spending, right? Based on what they're spending. So numbers can vary quite a bit. Look, in the industry, like if you can increase by 10% these different KPIs, it's a big number. So typically we're comfortable thinking of a 10% increase, whether it's, as I mentioned, revenue per session, top line revenue, et cetera. That's typically an easy kind of metric to accomplish. If you want to double your revenues, again, using a solution like dynamic yield, you're going to have to put some folks to work, and you're going to have to really define a strategy and a plan of action, and also a plan of execution, right? Because I think what we see is, again, the clients that are the most successful are not just the clients that have these big hairy goals, but the clients that are willing to invest either, again, with their own teams or using a partner in an agency like UTech in order to deliver those. Because at the end of the day, it depends on the teams you have, right? Typically, the folks that use dynamic yield, there's going to be somebody that's like a front-end developer. There's going to be UX designer. There's going to be typically sometimes they're called like a head of an optimization or a testing manager. There's also going to be somebody who's in the world of analytics. And all these different roles are critical because, again, analytics, you'll be reviewing the reports and understanding what works. And then the testing manager understands the different tests and how they're run and the statistical significances that are applied. And then the person on the UX side will be the one submitting the different templates or submitting the different visual layouts or changes you're making to the website or the app or whatever the case. So again, it really does depend on who is going to be doing this and how much a client is willing to invest to hit those goals.
Well, thank you, Charles. This was exceptionally enlightening, I think. Any final words on either of the topics, personalization or A/B testing, before we get out of here?
I mean, I guess the only thing I want to reiterate is the fact that, again, I hope I'm not like scaring the folks that are watching this video. I think personalization is critical. And if you think about so maybe I'll step back. 4 or 5 months ago, we got acquired by McDonald's, and you could think, like, why the hell is a tech company like Dynamic Yield getting acquired by McDonald's? Especially McDonald's out of all folks, right? And I think that speaks to the fact that really McDonald's is really smart about being very customer-centric and really wanting to deliver an experience that's amazing with every bite, with every order, et cetera.
Sure.
And look, sometimes they fail, but most of the times they're really good at what they do. And I think personalization is core to customer centricity. And I feel like I'm throwing buzzwords out there right now, right? But but truly being able to craft an experience that's meaningful, that you love, that makes you want to come back, experience again, buy more, order more, whatever the case, I think is critical. So personalization is critical. And again, to be successful at that, I think it's important to get the right people on the bus in order to deliver those experiences. So working with folks like you guys is critical to be able to reach that really, or delivering that customer experience that people have come to expect these days.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point, and that there's so much you can do, that having a solid team in there to really help implement that and to guide the process over time is it's just instrumental. I think
Totally.
it needs to happen. Yeah. Congrats on the acquisition with McDonald's, by the way. That's big news.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been big news, and it's been great because they've been really very much looking to us for what to do with technology, but leaving us alone at the same time. So looking to us as kind of the thought leaders in how you can leverage technology in a smart way to deliver improved customer experiences. So it's been amazing.
Yeah. So can we expect more personalized experiences at McDonald's coming here?
Definitely, yes.
All right.
There's going to be more and more. And again, it's what's crazy is that when you get acquired by a company with the reach of McDonald's, the impact you have is amazing, right? Like on the daily lives of so many millions of people. So you can definitely expect much more personalized experiences in the near future, whether that's using apps, whether that's in store, or whether that's online, you name it.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Charles. I really appreciate it. Like I said earlier,
Thanks,
this was very beneficial, and I'm sure our viewers found it the same. So thank you.
Thank you.